Hey there everyone, this is Michael Dougal, the Nootropic Reviewer, and you're going to learn about a very interesting research chemical. It's understudied, but it has a whole lot of promise because of its ability to restore dopamine function and has a specific application of using this compound if you're somebody that's experiencing withdrawals, or let's say you're somebody that's been ingesting way too much caffeine or perhaps ADHD medications, and now maybe it's come to a point that you're somewhat concerned about your dopamine system, and if your dopaminergic system is working optimally, that's where 9-MeBC has a lot of promise. I've got the capsule forms, I also have it in the powder form, and I actually regret taking it in the powder form, which I'm going to get to, and we're going to outline the benefits, some of the side effects, and how you may want to consider using the compound. One individual actually used the compound as a trial for 9 days. They took 20 to 40 milligrams every morning sublingually. First couple of days, they noticed a benefit. Their memory improved, maybe their energy. At the 7th day, they felt in a better mood, but at the 8th and 9th day, they actually felt more anxiety and more OCD thoughts. And there's various classes of nootropic supplements. Of course, we have our adaptogens, things like ashwagandha or rhodiola rosea, which may help with stress. Then we have some of the compounds that may help to produce focus, things like L-tyrosine or caffeine. And then you have compounds like 9-MeBC, which really have a category of their own because of the fact that they not only help to increase dopamine levels, but they may also help to reduce levels of anxiety as well as increase energy levels. And this was a really interesting study done on the compound because the rats that were taking 9-MeBC, they actually saw results at the 10-day mark, but they didn't see results within the 5 days. And the application of this compound is such that a lot of individuals anecdotally are using the compound for a specific period in order for them to restore dopamine production, in order for them to feel like their normal self. One individual mentioned it's their favorite nootropic by far, and you'll come across a lot of experiences where people are running 30-day cycles or 15-day cycles of the compound. From my experience in using the compound, I actually don't notice any sort of long-term benefit. I've tried running the cycles, but if anything, I feel like a nice acute benefit in that I feel somewhat sharp following 5 to 8 hours of using the supplement, and I'll typically save the supplement for those days when I'm taking less stimulants. So let's say I'm taking less caffeine, or the other way in which I personally enjoy using 9-MeBC are following days when I'll use very strong supplements like modafinil or phenylpirastine, because typically those days I feel a little bit groggy. And one of the most unfortunate things is that the effects are so variable with this compound. You find different experiences. Some people say that it helps with anxiety. Some people mention that it actually triggers panic attacks. So I would say for the general population, you may want to avoid this compound, but if you're somebody that is a bit concerned that maybe something's wrong with you, maybe you can't focus properly, or maybe you've been using something like Adderall for a considerable amount of time and you can't get over some of the withdrawals that you're experiencing, then it may not hurt to look at this compound a bit further. And the first major benefit around using 9-MeBC is a boost of energy, and how it actually feels is that it makes you more likely to actually feel some of the stimulants that you're ingesting. So say if you're somebody that doesn't notice much when you're taking caffeine, you'll be surprised that if you were to ingest your caffeine along with about 10 milligrams of 9-MeBC, that seems to work for me, you'll actually find that the caffeine is a lot more stronger. So by using 9-MeBC, I don't personally find that it increases my energy levels too significantly unless I'm in a state in which I'm sleep deprived, but that's one of the things that a lot of individuals are liking about the compound. And some individuals are noticing that by using one 9-MeBC cycle, they're actually noticing better energy levels the following 2 months after discontinuing the cycle. And this would actually make sense because there is a study showing that 9-MeBC increased nerve growth factor within rats. And nerve growth factor is a very important protein because what it does is helps to enhance recovery and helps the cells within your body work optimally. And the mechanism of action in which 9-MeBC works is by helping a specific enzyme in the brain better convert tyrosine to dopamine. So what happens is when you're ingesting tyrosine through foods like chicken breast, or perhaps you're supplementing with L-tyrosine, it'll make it such that the whole conversion between tyrosine to increasing dopamine levels is a lot more efficient and there's less blockage in the middle. So what does this mean? More goal-seeking behavior, more motivation, more energy levels, and feeling more stimulated and productive during the day. The second major benefit around using 9-MeBC is that it may actually help with anhedonia. And anhedonia is pretty much like the loss of interest in things which typically interest you. And one of the ways to know if you're in a bad mood or you're in somewhat of a slump is things that interest you, like let's say sports, are no longer interesting and you just want to be to yourself. And there's a whole subreddit that's actually dedicated to overcoming anhedonia, and 9-MeBC is one of the most popular and talked about compounds specifically for its application in getting you out of a slump. And this individual mentioned, I get overcome with the greatest improvement in mood, sociability, and wakefulness out of any agent that I've taken. And one of my favorite benefits about this compound that actually encouraged me to take it is that 9-MeBC may help to make you smarter. And as for this study, they actually found that rats that were using 9-MeBC had higher levels of BDNF within the brain. And BDNF, it's kind of like fertilizer for the brain, makes your brain grow, makes your brain more plastic, which means that you're able to learn in a faster fashion, you're able to remember things better, you're able to actually have better verbal fluency, and pretty much all the functions that are related to cognition are somewhat enhanced. And some of the things that you you can consider doing to increase levels of BDNF naturally are, of course, exercising, getting more sunlight, eating omega-3 rich foods. And then we have supplements that may as well increase levels of BDNF, such as Noopep, which is one of my favorite compounds for improving focus and productivity. I've talked more about it over here. There is some research suggesting that ingesting melatonin as well as some other supplements may increase levels of BDNF. So that's very encouraging, because I would have thought that this compound could potentially destroy my brain. Of course, the study was done on rats, but there's also research that may suggest that it acts as a cognitive enhancer in a hippocampus-dependent task. And the next major benefit is 9-MeBC helping with stimulant tolerance. And some individuals are actually taking a break from their stimulants and using 9-MeBC, whereas some individuals are just using less of their stimulants and then using 9-MeBC on top of that at smaller serving sizes like 5 to 10 milligrams. For me, it was Concerta. When I was using Concerta, I felt great, but when I stopped using Concerta, I felt absolutely awful, and I would have wished to have something like 9-MeBC during that period, because it took me a couple months in order for me to actually get back to a state in which I was normal and my mood was decent. And while some individuals like 9-MeBC for overcoming stimulant withdrawals, I actually prefer using bromontane. I find that bromontane is more effective. I also feel it's a bit more energizing. I've talked more about bromontane in this video over here, and you would take it in a similar way in which you would use 9-MeBC. And while the mechanism of action in which bromontane is a little bit different to 9-MeBC, they both work on your dopaminergic system. With bromontane, you actually naturally produce more dopamine within the brain, which I feel is a little bit more natural than using a research chemical like 9-MeBC. I'm not in love with bromontane. I'm not in love with 9-MeBC. I in no way promote these products, and I would certainly not suggest that you use any of these compounds. I actually will use 9-MeBC until I'm finished this product, but then I'll stop using it. And I'm pretty much just using these products in order to make good content for you. Let's talk about some of the side effects, and the most common one is going to be photosensitivity. And what that means is that if you're out in the sun, you're experiencing more DNA damage than you would have had if you're using 9-MeBC. And that's scaring a lot of people. We don't have too much research backing this phenomena, but it's something to be mindful of, especially if you live in some of the more sunnier areas like Florida. Another side effect, surprisingly, is actually demotivation. And there's plenty of anecdotes actually mentioning that individuals are using 9-MeBC in order to get motivated, but they're feeling worse off actually using the compound. And that's very concerning that there are so many inconsistent experiences. Like, at least if I were to use different nootropics, say ashwagandha, I know what the side effects may be. With 9-MeBC, you just don't know. This was an interesting anecdote. One individual mentioned that they're just over a week in at 30 milligrams daily orally, which is a higher serving size, and they'll be stopping tomorrow for the foreseeable future because they're experiencing fatigue, depersonalization, and headaches in the morning. And something interesting is that you'll find the compound in the powder form as well as the capsule form, but most individuals are likely to notice the compound working if they take the supplement sublingually, so taking it under the tongue. Although if you are to proceed with this method, it'll likely burn your tongue to some extent. It'll also cause a loss of taste for a couple of hours. And from my experience in using the compound, I haven't noticed any difference between taking it in the capsule form or taking it sublingually in the powder form. With respect to the dosage protocol, you'll commonly find the capsules in 15 milligram servings. And if you are to use the compound specifically for restoring your dopamine levels, then you may want to consider using the product for at least 2 weeks, better off maybe 20 to 30 days. That's where individuals are most likely to notice the results. That's actually what was suggested in some of the research as well. If you're like me and you notice the acute benefits, then you may want to consider just using it on those days when you really need it. You could take it in a fasted state. You can also take it in a fed state. It's fairly well tolerated that way. You may want to consider avoid using it in the later portion of the day. It may keep you up. For me, it's not that stimulating, but some individuals actually notice that it messes with their sleep. So I'll continue to keep you updated as we get more research on this compound. Make sure to click subscribe, and please share your thoughts with 9-MeBC in the comment section below, especially if you've used the compound. I want to know how you responded to it. If you want to chat with me one-on-one, you can message me on Patreon, and be sure to visit our Discord server, and I look forward to seeing you next time.